understand your first statement you said was made in hours, but you also said there was some predictability. You knew this was going to widen. So how can you have it both ways? And in hindsight, should you have called for de-escalation in that first statement?
No. In hindsight, to that point, in my judgment. Secondly, in terms of war, there are likelihoods, there are possibilities. You have to plan for the worst, but there are no certainties in conflict. Look, it is a very volatile, it's extremely complex situation. It's getting more complex as time goes on. But we absolutely stand by the fundamental principle that Iran should not be allowed to have a nuclear weapon and to continue to be a serial violator of international law. And these are not niceties. A serial violator of international law that is killing our citizens, that murders citizens by the thousands in these regions, that funds all the terrorist groups in the Middle East, from Hezbollah to Hamas to the Houthis. That aspect, that objective starts, and that's where we stand.
Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney has kind of been going between these two different positions over, between Saturday when he initially came out and supported the military strikes on Iran by the U.S. and Israel, and yesterday when he said he still does do that, but he's calling on all actors to follow international law and calling for de-escalation. So one of our colleagues down there asked Mark Carney, well, why didn't you call for de-escalation in the first place? Shouldn't you have done that? And Carney kind of stood by what he had initially said. He said, no, the initial statement was fine. They made it in the hours after the strikes happened. He was asked about how, on the one hand, he could say, there was predictability to the idea that this conflict could spread out beyond Iran into the wider Middle East and the Gulf region. And on the other, support the strikes without calling for de-escalation in the first place. And he kind of said, well, there are likelihoods, and then, there are probabilities. I kind of feel like we didn't get a very clear answer